Hi everybody. A very common question I get is, how do you help teams be successful, especially when they're trying to build great products? And so what I'm going to share with you are some of the things that I've learned in working on teams, both in a 0 to 1 capacity, as well as helping manage and maintain an existing product, and the things I've learned from having done things correctly, as well as from the many mistakes I made along the way as well. So hopefully by the end of it, we'll have a much better picture of what it takes to build a great product team and how do you balance all the various forces that go into helping a team be successful. But before I go on, just want to introduce myself for those of you who don't know me. My name is Krupa. I've always enjoyed just creating and building and shipping things, and this allowed me to work at a lot of really cool places, MIT, Microsoft, Salesforce, and Google, where I worked on and led various 0 to 1 initiatives, some of which you may even have heard of. In parallel, I create a lot of educational content, such as what you're seeing right now, and I've been doing this since 1998, so it's a long time away, and can find all of my content in the form of articles, videos, and even some best-selling books. Just go to Google, type in my name, you'll find all of it. And oftentimes my cat Pixel, for whatever reason, likes to join me on these conversations, so you might see him be adding his thoughts in various parts of it as well. Okay, so I'm going to put Pixel down for a moment so that we can continue this conversation. What I want to do is kind of get to the punchline first, explain to you what the biggest challenge is in arranging teams to be successful in building great products, and then we'll go into more detail on what all the subparts of that mean. The thing about building products, though, is the team structure is just one part of it. There's also the critical step of, is the problem we're solving? Do you have the right execution model in place to allow you to ship quickly, learn from what people are doing, and iterate in the open? Is it a problem that is worth solving by the time you end up shipping something that can actually be tried? There's a lot of variables here. And so building a kind of product that people love, that also makes financial and business sense for your organization, it's not easy. There's no 5 steps I can give you that's going to give you a sure shot way of being successful. All we can do here is take steps to increase the chances for success. And when I say increase the chances, I mean going from, let's say, 10% chance of success to maybe 12% or 13%. And all of these things over a period of time, though, add up to making it more likely to have a hit product than not. And so we're going to take some tangible steps here that can help, at least organizationally, what we can do. The biggest challenge and opportunity in organizationally arranging yourself for product success is to make the right people are in the right roles. And this seems very common sense. It's like, of course, we want the right people in the right roles, but there's some subtle details here that make it very difficult, and which is why many organizations struggle to get this right. And so what I'm going to do is tease that entire phrase apart a bit. We're going to focus on the 3 archetypes and the product development phases they map to. And when we see that, that'll give us a much clearer picture on how we can ensure that the right people are in fact in the right roles as part of building the product. So let's start with the 3 archetypes. In many organizations, creative ones, and especially in the technology ones, there are 3 archetypes you're going to see in the kind of roles that people naturally fall into. One is the visionary, the other is the craftsperson, and third is the operator. And let's talk about what each of these mean. Now, the concept of these 3 archetypes, the naming of it, the operator, craftsperson, visionary, it's not new. It's not something that I came up with. It's something that's been in the industry, in the lexicon for quite some time. And my favorite of it is Shreyas Doshi's summary from 2021. So quite a while ago, but it's still relevant today as it was when he first posted it. So I'll have a link to it below, but that gives you a very nice summary of one way of looking at it and how it can apply to making your organization more successful. I'm just going to expand upon that in this particular section. Let's talk about the 3 archetypes, starting with the visionary. The visionary is the kind of person who sees the future before others do. They kind of are great at rallying teams on an idea. They help build the vision for something that needs to be built and why it should be built. They really are critical in defining the future and also making sure how we can go from where we are today to where we need to go. And common examples of visionaries are the kind of people that normally would expect to fall into that category based on just what we see in popular culture. Steve Jobs, Elon Musk, Oprah Winfrey, Bill Gates, Jeff Bezos, the Google founders. It doesn't have to be also real. I also put Daenerys Targaryen here from the world of Westeros and Game of Thrones because she did see the role dragons can play and give her an opportunity and an edge over everyone else. So definitely there. Mark Zuckerberg and of course Walt Disney. I put him in the top right there because not traditional technology-based world, but definitely someone who saw that not just having great animation and storytelling, but also tying that with like theme parks and overall experience, definitely something that he kind of led the way with. Others didn't, so definitely a visionary there. The next is the craftsperson, and these are individuals who obsess over the quality and detail of the output of what the team ultimately creates. And whether it's technical mastery or design excellence, they have this need to have perfection in everything they do. Classic examples of craftspeople include Steve Wozniak, who paired with Steve Jobs on the technical side, Paul Allen, who paired with Bill Gates on the technical side again. You have Hideo Kojima, the very famous game designer, who if you ever played any of his games, like let's say like Metal Gear Solid, for example, you'll just see that there's storytelling, there's technical depth, there's little details that nobody would really focus on unless you really cared about it. Typical craftsperson mentality. Susan Kara, the famous icon designer. You have Miyazaki of Studio Ghibli fame, who not only creates great animations and storytelling, but has created a new way of almost redefining what watercolors and movement and animations can be mixed to create something really cool. So definitely a very technically adept individual. And the classic, of course, also is Johnny Ive, who of Apple fame, who worked with Steve Jobs on designing some of the most iconic products, and now is doing something similar in a startup at OpenAI, working on similar things. So all these individuals critical to the team, they obsess over the quality of what is being built. And finally, you have the operator. And the goal of the operators are really to keep the machine running smoothly. They excel at taking something and adding structure, adding process, adding consistency. Like in some ways, their job is to kind of add a certain level of grown-upness to a lot of fast-moving organizations. And Pixel just hit the keyboard here for some reason. And so examples of classic operators include, you have Gwynne Shotwell from SpaceX, and you have Tim Cook of Apple, you have Eric Schmidt, you have Meg Whitman. My favorite is Frank Slootman, who's often been known to come into various companies as they transition from being more of a startup once they found product market fit to being more of a mature company and doing whatever it takes to help increase the muscle for the company to succeed at this more mature stage of their growth. And there are other examples here as well. The important detail I want to highlight, though, is that no one archetype is better than the other. They're each valuable and serve an essential purpose, especially when we look at the phases of a product's life. Not all three may be valuable at the same time, but as a company evolves, as a product evolves, each of them will step up and need to play a key role in making the product successful. And so let's now pivot to talk about what I mean by product development phases. There are 3 product phases, and the way I could simplify it is into the world where you have new launches. These are often known as 0 to 1 initiatives, where you're creating something brand new from scratch. Your bold vision and experimentation, finding product market fit. These are all things you're trying to get to. The other phase is you're improving existing product, and this is often known as the 1 to N phase, where you're hitting the gas from 10 miles per hour to 15 miles per hour, and what is it going to take to make that work? And the last phase is a very important one, and that is the maintenance phase, or KTLO, or insert your favorite acronym, because KTLO stands for keeping the lights on. It's a phrase that I've heard a lot, but there may be other phrases that your teams and your companies might use as well. But know that this phase is really about not adding new features, not changing things, making things look very different. It's really about just ensuring reliability, performance, and making sure that it's a daily driver for people, that they can trust it to work today, and it'll continue working, a year from now, 2 years from now, maybe even 10 years from now, depending on the kind of product that you are working on. And the detail here also is that some products, in fact, most products, can be in multiple phases at the same time. If you take a look at some of the most popular examples of products that we often see and have used, you'll see that they all have something new that they innovate on, that they're doing very critically, that is highlighted as part of marketing material and often in every yearly cadence. Then they have large set of features that are just slightly better. Some bugs have been fixed, some annoyances in the usability have been addressed. And so it's like minor improvements in the 1 to N space. And then there are large parts of the product that have not been touched for years because if it isn't broken, why try to fix it, kind of a model. And some examples here are, really highlight that. TurboTax is a great example of this. The core product hasn't changed in decades, but every year something interesting is introduced, integrations are introduced that make it just that much better. Norton Antivirus, a lot of us may have grown up seeing Peter Norton's face on the box of the antivirus products. For the many years, the product did a good job on its core work, and it had other things it added as new features. The Windows operating system, our laptops, the MacBook Pro, video games, Call of Duty, Black Ops 2. When Call of Duty Black Ops first came out, it was pretty groundbreaking. And then, 10 years since then, they've kept the core of the game intact. It was basically in maintenance mode, but then they added new features and capabilities, which goes into the 0 to 1 mode. And so products can live in multiple phases, or cars or phones, high-end speakers, they all fall in this similar category. And the tie it all back to what we started off with, the best product teams ensure the right individuals are in a decision-making capacity at the appropriate product development phases. And so when you're in a new launch, you're doing a 0 to 1 product, the primary driver, the primary decision maker who has to cast a tie-breaking vote is the visionary. For improving existing product, going from 1 to N, it's the craftsperson who's going to be the final decision maker. And in maintenance mode, where in KTLO, it's the operator who's fully in the driver's seat. Now, when we say that one archetype is in the driver's seat, it doesn't mean the other two archetypes are not in the picture at all. They are playing a role. They might even play a critical role in contributing to the overall vision of what's being done right now. But their primary contribution, though, will be in support of the main archetype in this case, which for maintenance is operator, which for 1 to N is a craftsperson, and for 0 to 1 is the visionary. And so this seems like a simple problem. And what we need to do, of course, is ensure that we optimize our organizational structure and the processes to make sure the right people are in the right spot and are able to execute really quickly. And now let's talk about how exactly we make it all work. So the first step, the most critical step, is clarifying the balance of power, as in who calls the final shots. And in most organizations, in fact, all organizations, unless you're a rare number of a few exceptions, whether you're a small company or large company, there's a hierarchy. There's someone at the top, there's someone reporting to a person at the top, and then more people below it. And the idea really is to create this balance of responsibilities and powers so the best people can focus on the things they need to build things. And so who is the person at the very top who makes the final call on product decisions? That's where the right archetype at the right product phase becomes critical, because the decision maker in this case needs to be, for new launches, visionary, for improving the existing product is the craftsperson, and when in maintenance mode, it has to be the operator. And what we often find, though, right, is it's not always a single person who gets to make the final call. It's often a combination of individuals. We call it the leadership team or the core team, whatever name you want to give it, but it's going to be a handful of people who've been empowered to help make decisions, help vote, and help decide the direction of the product. And this is actually a more common approach, especially in more established products and teams, because great products, as we found historically, are often built in teams that balance visionaries, craftspeople, and operators to get the best result. And some examples are of Apple. You have Steve Jobs, you have Tim Cook, you have Johnny Ive, you have Steve Wozniak. Each of them brought very unique strengths and capabilities. Sometimes they weren't even in the limelight for many years, but they played a critical role in the success of products. The partnership between Bill Gates and Paul Allen in the early days is legendary. Of course, Eric Schmidt and the Google founders, Larry and Sergey. Another great example, Elon Musk and Gwynne Shotwell at SpaceX. Elon does does all of the visionary kind of work, while as Gwynne makes sure the day-to-day operations and the company actually runs in a way that can deliver on the vision. Sheryl Sandberg and Mark Zuckerberg, all of these great examples where you had multiple archetypes. You had one person who was either the CEO or made the final call, but there was great amount of mutual respect and ability to collaborate across these archetypes to make sure that the decision was made balancing everyone's expertise. Number 2, knowing when to navigate a transition. Now, if we simplify, this is product development in general, there's a part where we're building the product, and that's what we call the dev cycle. Then there's a part that once you built it, you want to ship it, you want to make sure that you're able to understand what customers are doing, and that it's the ops cycle. And this has a very code-centric terminology to it, but you can replace code with manufacture or service, and it all falls very similarly. And different people on your team, we focus on different parts of this cycle. Some people might be in the building phase, some people might be in the maintenance phase, some people might even be in the marketing phase, in the go-to-market teams. And the challenge and the trick is to know, when do you make a change? Once a product goes from 0 to 1, it now transitions naturally from 0 to 1 to 1 to N. When that happens, there needs to be a shift where the decision maker for that particular part of the problem space needs to be either replaced or needs to expand their responsibilities to focus on the new set of work that's needed. For a visionary, doing work that is in maintenance mode is not the right call. And similarly, you don't want an operator, or you don't want a craftsperson to be leading some of these initiatives that require out-of-the-box thinking, because not that they're not capable of it, it's just that their core skills, so their default center of gravity, isn't going to help match the needs of what this job requires. And the part also to note is that many people, some of the more qualified people we've seen so far, they wear multiple hats. They might have a primary archetype where they are, either a visionary or an operator or a craftsperson, but they can easily scale to accommodate other parts of the need. So when we talk about making a transition, it doesn't always mean we change the person itself. It really means that we change what the person focuses on. If they're capable of operating at the new level, the new expectations, great. If they're not, then there needs to be a shift made to have the right person be again in the right spot. And the timing of it is where I think a lot of companies struggle, a lot of organizations struggle. And we've seen so many cases where some companies stayed in startup mode for too long, and that led to them never being able to become a profitable, mature business. We've also seen cases where some companies ended up becoming too early in trying to become a mature business, and they missed out on new opportunities, things that if they had just focused a little bit longer, they might have been able to capture a bigger part of the problem space. So timing is key. And what you always see, especially in teams that have released their first version of the product and are balancing both feature development, maintenance, and new innovation, is you're going to see a balance of responsibilities where one part of the organization, we're working on new and shiny, and this could be the craftsperson or it could be the visionary. And there's some other parts we work on improving existing, which could be the craftsperson or the operator. And the idea really is you want to make sure that everyone has the opportunity to shine based on the face of the product. Number 3, matching people to archetypes. Now, before we kind of were more in the objective sense. It's kind of a way we can see like, okay, objectively, here's what the product needs, here's where we are, here's what we're going to do. Now we get to the more messy people part of the challenge, which is how do you match people to the archetypes that they're in and make sure you can do the right things. And a challenge here is that many people simply don't know what archetype or even primary archetype they fall under. A lot of us might have taken trainings on what personality type we are, what color we are in terms of like that personality chart, depending on the program you're using, to see like how teams are structured and how well you can work well with each other. Very few teams ever take a moment to step back and think about what is the actual archetype of each person on the team. Number 2, some people know what archetype they are, but they're in denial about it. And that is related to number 3, which is they're fully aware of their archetype, but they know it isn't beneficial for their career to highlight or change. And these are both challenges because these are ones that can be addressed culturally by the organizational leader. Because if you're an organization and it prides itself on being innovative, being cutting edge, everything they talk about marketing-wise, everything internal is talking about how they're innovative and cutting edge, yet what they actually are building and what the market actually values from them is the building of pickaxes, making a faster car. That disconnect is one that many organizations live through, but they never admit to it. And if you're working in an organization like that, you need to play the game. You need to essentially say, I too am an innovative leader. I'm a visionary, even if your day-to-day job is that you're an operator or a craftsperson. And so making this change is something that only the organization leader can identify and help fix, because otherwise you're not going to be rewarded effectively. And as we know, and I might make a different video about this in the future, ultimately the behaviors you see in an organization are what get rewarded, not what is shown in slide decks, not what is said in press meetings and all those various things. So if you're leading a team and you see a major misalignment across the archetypes, at this point as an organizational leader, your job isn't to be the visionary or the craftsperson or the operator. That's a luxury you can deal with later, is to create the conditions where all 3 archetypes can shine and ensure the right people are in the right roles, not what they wish they were in, not what they think they should be in, but what they actually are qualified and competent to do. And that's what organizational change in many ways is difficult, but that's also where the biggest value can be created if teams and people get it right. And I don't use Yoda quotes too much, but this is a problem that needs to be solved, and solve it you must. And so if we put a bow on this and tie it all together, there are 3 archetypes that we will see in organizations. And if you take a step back and look at your organizational chart or look at all the people in your team, you can probably slot them in one of these categories. A visionary will always be about the future. What should we build? And here's what it can look like. The craftsperson will be, how do we build things with excellence? And the operator will be all about how do you make it scalable, sustainable, and how do you make sure it's keeps it running, reliable in many ways. And so the 4 steps, if I had to simplify that even further, is know what product phase you're currently operating in. Is it a new product, 0 to 1? Is it a product you're trying to improve? Or is it a product that says in maintenance mode? Once you have clarity on that, then you can assign the right people to the archetype best suited for that phase, operator, visionary, and craftsperson. Number 3 is to encourage collaboration across archetypes. While it is possible to have a single person be the one who makes all the decisions, which you might see in startups or in much smaller teams, the best scalable solution, of course, is one where everyone shares responsibility between each other. And so we saw some examples from how a lot of famous companies and products have multiple archetypes that work well together. And so as a leader, it is your job to balance the mixture of archetypes and to create the space for each archetype to survive. And so the great products aren't built by chance. They're built by teams that balance vision, craft, and execution. And if you do these things, you're not going to be guaranteed to have a successful product, but at least you'll have some of the foundations built where you can increase your chances of having a successful product. If you found this video helpful and had some questions or comments, feel free to post below. I like to reply to as many of them as I can. You can always post in the forums where I'd be more happy to go into detail. You have much better formatting options. So definitely my P0 is to post in the forums, but you can find me anywhere. I'm available all these places. And links to all the things that I do can be found below. So if you want to find me on social media or check out some of my books, all of it will be there for you to try out. And with that, I'll see you all next time.